Hafa Adai, it's your innovation coach, Rob Jackson, and welcome to another edition of the Innovate Guam Podcast, the podcast where we explore all things innovation, technology, and improvement related to the island of Guam. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow me on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Substack. My podcasts drop at the beginning of each week. Also, be sure to check out my Innovate column in the Pacific Daily News every other Friday of each month. All right, today's episode is a little different than our normal Innovate Guam podcast. Instead of interviewing a guest, I'm sharing the audio from the University of Guam's PA 490 and PA 590 end of semester forum, where my students presented the results of an entire semester of research on one of Guam's biggest economic opportunities, building a stronger logistics, transshipment, and value-added economy. Throughout the semester, the students examined 7 major issue areas, including workforce development, defense sustainment, permitting, energy, aquaculture, port modernization, and regulatory reform. Their challenge wasn't simply to study these issues, it was to develop practical recommendations for Guam's future. For this special episode, I'm presenting the forum in its entirety so you can hear how all of these pieces fit together into one large conversation about Guam's economic future. If you're only interested in a particular topic, I'll also be releasing each student presentation as its own standalone episode on my YouTube channel and Substack, making it easy to dive deeper into the specific issue areas that interest you most. Because this is a live recording, you'll hear occasional references to presentation slides, and there might be slight variations in audio quality. But I think you will find the students' research, analysis, and recommendations well worth your time. So let's begin with the University of Guam PA 490 and PA 590 Forum. From Port to Policy, Advancing Transshipment in Guam through Labor and Industry Collaboration. Welcome aboard.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for joining us tonight at the University of Guam School of Business and Public Administration for a student-led forum titled From Port to Policy, Advancing Transshipment in Guam through Labor and Industry Collaboration. Tonight is different because of students, and we are stepping forward to engage directly in conversations that will shape Guam's future. As both a student and a part of this team behind tonight's presentation, I can say this project challenges us to move beyond theory into real-world policy decisions. Throughout the semester, we examined Guam's transshipment opportunities, analyze regulatory and infrastructure barriers, develop practical recommendations tied directly to Guam's economic future. One of the biggest lessons that we learned is that transshipment is about more than moving cargo. It's about creating value here on Guam through logistics, repair and maintenance, packaging, manufacturing, workforce development, and long-term industry growth. Tonight's presentation is a result of this work. So as you listen tonight, we ask you to listen not only as an audience member, but as mentors, collaborators, and partners in Guam's future. After the presentation, we welcome your feedback, and we want you to challenge us and challenge our ideas, build recommendations, and help us build better understanding and what it takes to turn these opportunities into reality for Guam. And I would like to open the floor to our first presenters, Lizzie and Mevely, as they discuss complex regulatory processes.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Mevely, and my partner is Lizzie, and we'll be covering the complex regulatory topics. We will begin with the introduction and overview of our research or study, followed by the issues, background, discussion, factors contributing to regulatory inefficiencies and conclude with the recommendation. Guam relies heavily on imported goods and cargo shipments to support businesses, retail stores, restaurants, construction, and everyday consumer needs. Because of this dependence, efficient cargo clearance operations are essential to maintain economic stability and supply chain continue across the island. Cargo clearance involves custom processing, inspection, documentation, verification, and approvals from multiple agencies to ensure compliance with trade laws, safety standards, and security requirements. However, as the global trade continues to expand and become more complex, modern trade operations now require faster coordination, digital communication, and real-time information exchange among agencies involved in cargo processing. This plot chart summarizes the overall study. It is divided into 4 sections, as you can see: issues, background, discussion, and recommendation. The issue section identifies operational inefficiencies in the current cargo clearance system. The background section explains how these inefficiencies develop over time. The discussion section analyzes the real-world impact of these inefficiencies on trade and supply chain performance. And the recommendation section presents policy solutions focused on system modernization and digital integration. And I'll be handing the mic over to my partner to show us and give us a heads up on the current transshipment process step by step.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Ms. Maybelline. As Maybelline mentioned, I will be talking about the current transshipment process. So, according to the Innovate Guam, this chart illustrates Guam's current cargo clearance workflow. The process begins when a vessel arrives at Guam, at which point the importer must manually submit all requirements and documentations to the customs and quarantine agencies, to include the bill of lading, commercial invoice, business license, and any other special permits. Cargo is then moved into the port yard, which is controlled by the Port Authority of Guam. At this stage, the cargo is physically present on island, but no regulatory processing has been completed beforehand. CQA then conducts a document review to determine whether inspection is required. This decision is based on commodity type, risk indicators, and regulatory requirements. If an inspection is required, the cargo must be moved to a container freight station or other inspection areas. If no inspection is required, CQA issues a release decision. The final step in the process is the Port Authority release, which allows the cargo to exit the port yard. Because each step occurs sequentially and depends on the completion of the previous step, delays accumulate quickly. This model results in clearance times ranging from 24 hours to 5 days, depending on agency workload and port congestion.
This entire process has created several major issues within Guam's regulatory system. The current regulatory system faces several structural inefficiencies, including fragmented agency coordination, reliance on manual documentation, limited automation, and lack of real-time cargo visibility. These issues reduce transparency, slow decision-making, and create delays in cargo movement throughout the clearance process. These challenges developed because Guam's regulatory system was originally designed around traditional administrative processes rather than integrated digital trade system. Each agency operates independently with separate procedures and documentation requirements. As cargo volume increased over time, the system did not evolve at the same pace. As a result, the current framework struggles to meet the demands of modern trade, which requires integrated system, real-time coordination, and digital processing capabilities. The impact of these inefficiencies extends beyond administrative delays and directly affects Guam's supply chain performance and economic activity. Businesses experience higher operational costs due to extended storage time, delayed shipments, and inventory disruptions. Limited system integration also reduces transfers and slow coordination during peak shipping periods. These structural limitations weaken supply chain reliability and reduce Guam's competitiveness compared to more digital advanced regional ports. And with that, to improve Guam's cargo clearance system, the focus should be on integrated digital transformations supported by proven international models. Guam should implement a single window system where all cargo documentation and approvals are processed through one centralized platform. Singapore's TradeNet system demonstrates how this improves coordination and reduces clearance time through unified agency access. The system should transition to full paperless trade by all documentation processes. South Korea's Trade Hub system shows how this improves accuracy and reduces administrative delays. Customs operations should be modernized using automated systems such as the Asikuda system, which is used in countries like Vanuatu or Papua New Guinea to support electronic submissions and automated risk assessment. Simultaneous multi-agency approval system should be adopted so agencies process cargo in parallel instead of sequentially. The United Arab Emirates uses this model to reduce processing time and improve coordination. Real-time cargo tracking systems should be developed to improve visibility across the supply chain. The port of Rotterdam in the Netherlands demonstrates how live tracking improves planning and reduces uncertainty. Finally, interagency coordination should be strengthened through integrated e-government systems. Estonia provides a strong example of digitally connected government agencies sharing secure real-time data. These are proven international systems that Guam can adapt to modernize its trade framework and improve regulatory efficiency. So now I'm going to hand over the mic again to my partner to visualize how our recommendation will be put into work.
Thank you, Ms. Maybelline. So as you can see in this chart, the new model introduces a much more modernized system that uses digital processing, pre-arrival submissions, and automated risk covering and value-added operations to improve efficiency. Unlike the current system, this model operates in parallel instead of sequentially, meaning agencies can process information simultaneously before the cargo arrives at Guam. Under this system, carriers electronically submit applications, permits, and shipment data about 24 to 72 hours before the vessel arrives through the Asikuda system. The Asikuda system is an automated system for customs data. It's an electronic custom management platform developed by the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development to modernize and automate customs clearance and international trade processes. So once submitted through this system, CQA conducts pre-arrival risk scoring which will take around 5 to 30 minutes. Yard assessments, yard assignments, VOA routing, and inspection scheduling can also be completed before the vessel docks, reducing delays at the port. On arrival day, low-risk cargo may automatically clear and move directly to the yard within 2 to 6 hours. Medium-risk cargo may undergo document review and random inspections within 6 to 12 hours, while high-risk cargo may require pre-scheduled returns inspections, which will last around 12 to 24 hours. For cargo routed through value-added operations, additional activities such as sorting, relabeling, repackaging, and outbound applications can be prepared around 2 to 12 hours depending on cargo complexity. Overall, this new model drastically reduces cargo dwell time and port congestion by shifting much of the compliance process through the pre-arrival stage. So with this model, the low-risk cargo will save time from around 6 to 12 hours. Medium-risk cargo will save time from 12 to 18 hours, while high-risk cargo may be processed within 18 to 24 hours, making this system faster and more efficient than the current model. With that said, I will give the floor to Mr. Manny to talk more about land zoning and developmental planning. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Is my not even on?
There you go.
You guys hear me?
Yeah.
Happy Friday, everybody. So today I'm going to discuss land zoning, permitting, and development. So this is the table of contents of what I will be discussing. Next. So Guam's land zoning is often characterized by permitting system flaws, fragmented interagency, and a lack of digital resources. And Guam's land use zoning, it was developed to protect the development of building and property, things of that nature. And I'm going to discuss the inefficiencies and delays that could affect Guam's economy and some recommendations on how we can improve that. Next. So this right here, this is a drawing of McDonald's Dedito. I used to work for Innovate Guam as a project coordinator. If I were to use this entire map, we would be here all night. This is 92 pages. It has everything from plumbing, electrical, architectural plans. And the Department of Public Works, they want you to have a hard copy of this. This is from PDF, but they want you to print out the entire drawing, at least 24 by 36 inches. That's a lot. And each agency you go to before they check for permit, they want the drawing. So imagine if you were to print out, let's say, 5. That's 500 something pages, and you're going to spend a lot of money. So you're not going to do that. You're going to just have one drawing, maybe a second copy for reference. Next slide. So you would fill out this form here, and it has the different, whichever type of work you're going to do. The contractor has to sign it, the owner, VC, the architect has to sign it, and from here, depending on whatever work you have to do, each agency would have to look at this and approve whichever work that you're doing. And they want everything, they want the drawing, the hard copy of the drawing, and they want it on a disc. And you have to go through different people and give them the disc for them to review it, for them to approve. Next. So here's just a little flow chart of how it goes. You got the pre-application conference, submit the application, different agencies review, so on and so forth. Next. So from Dr. Herbert Johnson, created a Gantt chart. This is around the average time it would take to get permission. You see his initial date was August 20th. And you see the average time it takes to go through each agency to get their permission before it ultimately goes back to DPW for the approval. And you see the issuance date is February. This is for a commercial property or commercial renovation. So on average, it takes 6 months. Now, as a project coordinator, if we don't have permission to do the work, if my guys can't work, they can't get paid. And if the work can't get done, I have a dissatisfied client. Next. So, excuse me. So the governor's task force to reform government permitting, it was an executive order passed in February 2019, and Dr. Herbert Johnson task force, they wanted to review the different permitting procedures, and they met with different agencies to take data from the process of how long each of these things would take, based off that Gantt chart that was part of the data sample that they took. So why is this important? It's important because agencies, they have different procedures. I'll give you an example now. Appeals board. This is so annoying. I'm just getting flashbacks thinking about it. So appeals board, whenever you go to them, you need to have the drawing and the disc, and they want a $15 payment. But not just any payment. They want it in a check. So I have to go back to the office, ask for the accountant, can you please write a check to appeals board for $15? I can pull out $15 from my car under my seat somewhere. But they want a check. And this is an opportunity to make improvements with the permitting process. That's why Dr. Johnston and the task force, they did this, because they wanted to see where some of the flaws were and how we can make improvements. And with those improvements, it'll give investors, it'll give clients who actually want to build around Guam, it'll give them more confidence, and that'll further our economy. Next. So, the issue, it's a lack of active leadership. There's a lot of reactive leaders within these agencies. Trust me, I know. When I've gone to one of the one-stop agencies and I ask, hey, what's the status of my permit? And I'll hear, oh man, it's been sitting on my desk. What the heck? Been waiting for 2 weeks to get an answer, and it's just been sitting on your desk collecting dust? What the heck? And that delays the permitting process because they're not actively doing anything or actively, I don't mean to call out any of the leaders, but this is what happens. This affects people's livelihoods, essentially. That's it. When we don't have permission to do work, and my guys can't work, they can't get paid. You know? And the zoning maps are often outdated, too. And I got a quote from Dan Swavely from the Data Points podcast. He said, until permitting rises to the first, second, or third priority, we won't see any changes. So, next. So with that, I would recommend and emphasize the importance of permitting land and zoning on Guam. That's one of the priorities that the government needs to make. Especially, we're trying to continue to build. And we should update and make it simple, because a lot of people, when they're doing these applications, they're lost. So there should be at least some kind of guide on how to properly fill out an application chart, because if it's not filled out correctly, that could lead to delays as well. And last but not least, develop an online permitting platform to expedite the process. Next. And here is a flow chart, is a concept of how it would be if it was 100% online. You would just create an account, you can upload your documents, not have to go to Fast Copy or Copy Express to print out 100 pages of a drawing. You have it all in PDF. And AI could review it, whoever develops a site can tell it what to do, what to look for, and what flaws to find, and correct every mistake that's made, so that way there's no delays in the process. So there's faster approvals, real-time tracking, and it's all on record digitally. And there's another one, next. There's another, a third-party digital platform. Have you guys heard of American Passport Renewal? So it will be something similar to that, and it's called Real Facts. This is from Ryan Mummert, and it's a data port, and it aggregates the real data of the property information on Guam, and the map updates every couple days. And they could also be the third party of the permitting process. They can do all the paperwork for you, keep track of everything, and do it all digitally. And this is beneficial to investors, to real estate agents, to land developers, whoever. However, it is a paid subscription, but if you're investing, why not invest and make your job easier, right? So in conclusion, land zoning and permitting plays an important role in regulating the growth of Guam. And as we continue to grow, we should modernize the system so we can create a more efficient process, especially for our investors. Like I said, if things are efficient and things are on point, investors will have more confidence into investing their money into Guam. Perhaps maybe the DOD would have more of an interest in investing in Guam too. But I'm not going to talk about that. I'm going to leave that to Mary.
Hafa Adai, everyone. My name is Mary Nashinseno, and I will be discussing the topic of local awareness of DOD sustainment needs. And here are my table of contents. Guam's strategic location in the Indo-Pacific positions the island as a critical hub for U.S. military logistics, sustainment, and operational readiness amid rising regional tensions. However, going into my issue statement and plot chart. With my issue statement, Guam defense sustainment opportunities are limited by insufficient insight into DOD sustainment needs and the award of contracts to off-island companies. And with this, I'll just go briefly into my background. Here that I have some points. So we all know that military presence on Guam is very prevalent. Right now, DOD has a 5-year plan outlined. It started in fiscal year 2024 and will end in 2028, and has this and it calls for spending about $7.3 billion. And just going straight into my next points there, I have Guam's strategic Indo-Pacific role. I kind of touched on that before mentioning my issue statement, but it just relates to Guam's long-standing role with the U.S. military and how it's a key drive for the island to dive into sustainment needs in relation with DOD amid rushing Indo-Pacific tensions. And with these policies that I have here stated with the National Defense Industrial Strategy, it emphasizes expanding U.S. military repair and sustainment capacity through regional and forward deployed infrastructure. And with RSF, the Regional Sustainment Framework, it just focuses on moving maintenance, repair, and sustainment capability closer to operational areas in the Indo-Pacific. With the last two, the Partnership for Indo-Pacific Industrial Resilience, it expands this approach through allied and partner cooperation, and with the Maritime Action Plan, this just reinforces these goals by linking national security, and together these policies support the development of forward-based industrial capacity on Guam and strengthen its role as a strategic sustainment and logistics hub in the Indo-Pacific. And with my last point, distance from mainland reduces readiness, I just wanted to mention this because we can expand ship repair capabilities, aircraft sustainment, war readiness material, and drone industry, which I will go into my discussion about. But we can expand this here on the island as the military currently relies on other locations off island. So going straight into my discussion. First, I want to talk about ship repair capability and capacity. Right now, so on the top, we only operate at an intermediate level. In the past, we were able to operate at a depot level. So in terms of ship repair and maintenance due to workforce performance and ability, infrastructure capacity, and regional demand. And with the intermediate level, we only can do pier-side ship repairs as we don't have a dry dock capacity on the island or the workforce right now to sustain it. And due to this constraint, it restricts the scope of work that can be completed locally as ships are sent back off island to, let's say, Hawaii, the U.S. mainland, or Japan for depot level repairs. And Guam would be able to increase operational readiness, distance, and turnaround time, as this also becomes a missed economic opportunity for the island and unpredictable and opaque Navy demands. It just makes it difficult for companies to justify long-term investments in depot-level repair and capability. And because of this opaque nature of the DoD demand for ship repair, it just makes it hard for local companies to be able to come in contract opportunities. So many sustainment contracts are managed and awarded through acquisition and sustainment commands located in the continental United States. And often this creates a barrier for Guam attempting to compete directly at prime contractors or even positioning themselves as at least subcontractors within larger defense sustainment frameworks. And in addition, with my last point, many defense sustainment firms perceive Guam as a difficult environment for long-term operations, and therefore Guam companies are de facto excluded not only from major contracts but also from the broader defense industrial ecosystem tied to sustainment and logistics operations. And I just wanted to mention one more thing about this. While the military SEALIFT Command does maintain a presence here right now, it only relates to the pier-side intermediate maintenance work awarded to local ship repair, for example, Cabot Marine Corporation and other ship repair companies. And it's just primarily limited to contracts associated with the military SEALIFT Command, so not the broader scope of the contracts that I mentioned. And with aircraft maintenance, so right now, Andersen Air Force Base in Guam serves as a strategic hub for the U.S. Indo-Pacific and is a staging area for long-range bomber task forces. And existing operational demand in Guam supports the case for expanding sustainment capacity. So mainland depots perform higher value sustainment work, as Guam right now only, as I mentioned, it supports bomber task force units, airlift, and tanker activity. And expanding aircraft sustainment here on Guam, we should focus on capabilities such as aviation ground support, corrosion control, aerospace ground equipment, and other aircraft-related maintenance. And with GENIS, also known as the Air Force Sustainment Center's Global Enterprise Network for universal sustainment, it's one way Guam can strengthen its role by integrating local maintenance capabilities into a broader global logistics and repair network. And with my last 2 points in my discussion, I'm just going to go straight into war readiness material. So this is just essential for minimizing supply chain vulnerabilities in sustainment operations. So each branch of the military have their own stocks, either afloat or shore, serving as mobile power projection platforms to deter adversaries from threatening global security while enabling rapid response capabilities. So what is war readiness material? It just refers to a set of resources and stock that are arranged in advance to assist operations that include munitions, generators, mission essential equipment, tools, fuel support, and many other equipment. And this component, it just requires climate-controlled warehouses and shops for inspections and repairs, and also having value-added operations for aircraft sustainment and war readiness material is one way Guam can add capability to cargo and logistics operations in the Indo-Pacific. And also, in addition, with my last point in the other discussion slide, I just wanted to mention integrating aircraft maintenance operations and war readiness material creates opportunities for Guam to develop a more comprehensive forward sustainment network rather than just threading these capabilities and so things them separately. They can actually be integrated together. And with the drone industry, this is an emerging technology that is innovative and of high value. For Guam, it was taken on through videographers, construction needs, and also with small enterprises under the U.S. Executive Order 14307 unleashing American drone dominance will accelerate testing and enable drone routine operations, scale up domestic production, and expand the export of trusted American manufactured drone technologies to global markets. And then into my next point with Bella Wings Aviation, it's a private company on Guam right now, and they have publicly shifted toward local drone manufacturing, and it puts Guam in a powerful and unexpected position. And with my last point with GAMA, the Guam Additive Materials and Manufacturing Accelerator, this is a new additive manufacturing hub being built on Guam to reduce repair timelines for deployed vessels. And these initiatives just highlight a growing sustainment, again, opportunity for Guam. But right now, we just currently lack the workforce and depth needed for self-sufficiency. And with that said, Guam should prioritize the development of a competitive private sector defense sustainment ecosystem capable of supporting DoD operational requirements in the Indo-Pacific. And this just goes into my recommendations that I have. So what can we do to sustain? So I have 8 recommendations altogether. These are the first 4. So expanding ship repair capability to a depot level. So in my discussion, I mentioned ship repair and just like a brief portion about it, but creating a depot level ship repair capacity and capability on Guam is a way that Guam can sustain demand. Expanding dry dock infrastructure, workforce capability, and industrial capacity would allow Guam to perform higher level maintenance currently conducted off-island, so in Hawaii, the U.S. mainland, Japan. And Guam started off with Guam Shipyard as its prime source of ship repair capabilities, and then Cabot Marine Corporation emerged, then CFIX, Maruda, and now Blue Steel LLC is the new one. And this whole competitiveness of a ship repair environment involving these companies, it would just further position Guam as a forward sustainment hub. And with my second recommendation, expanding aircraft maintenance capacity to support Guam as a forward sustainment node, investments again in corrosion control, aerospace, ground, and equipment, the ones I mentioned earlier in aircraft, it would just improve operational flexibility while reducing reliance on maintenance sustainment facilities. For my third one, I have addressing the need for climate-controlled warehouses for war readiness material. I kind of touched on that too, and it would just reduce supply chain vulnerability, strengthen core logistic operations for military forces operating in the region. With the last one I have here, develop genus and gamma capabilities, so just implementing both on the island will expand Guam's role in regional sustainment and advanced manufacturing. And integrating these initiatives, again, it would just improve the responsiveness while creating new industrial and technical opportunities. And then for my last part of my recommendations, I have developing the drone ecosystem in defense and commercial industries. And as I mentioned earlier, it's an emerging industry, and Guam can expand this industry through partnerships between defense agencies, private industry, and also Just building this local capability would support both military sustainment requirements and commercial applications. And strengthening and stabilizing sustainment demand through allied partnerships would also be great, because this kind of ties into my background with the policies I mentioned. It would just increase opportunities for regional maintenance and co-sustainment. And then for strengthening Guam's participation in sustainment contracting, having advanced notice of contracting opportunities, regional industry engagement events, and incentives encouraging prime contractors to partner with local firms, it would just strengthen Guam's defense industrial base while improving long-term sustainment resilience in the Indo-Pacific. And then prioritizing workforce development on Guam. This is very important, and I just wanted to emphasize on this because workforce capability and capacity is a significant factor that our island should be investing in. Thank you. So this is just a chart I made for recommendations for the workforce development. I will only go briefly through this because Chris from PA 590, he will actually present on this topic soon after. So exposing students early, even as early in middle school, the manufacturing and engineering education reimagined for all curriculum, also known as the MIRA program. It just helps students visualize themselves in manufacturing careers through applied learning in engineering, welding, and it is actually set to launch here on the island in August, and it will be a pilot program through Mount Carmel Academy Charter School. And then I have here exposing them in high school. It's just important because partnering with local high schools, it could just help them see another career either in ship repair or in any of these jobs that I mentioned. And then also having summer programs, maybe they can observe on the job. Having GCC trade programs, even UOG pathways in engineering related to naval architecture. And then I have on the end apprenticeships and having continued training or education. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you for listening. And I will now give the floor to Albright, who will be discussing aquaculture industry development.
For that wonderful presentation. My name is Albright Jackson, and I will be talking about the aquaculture industry development on Guam. So here is my just brief overview of the talking points that I will be discussing today. And here is my quad chart. It's just a brief overview of the structure of my presentation. We'll go through some strategic considerations, some helpful background context, discussion where current frameworks can be strengthened, and then a set of recommendations for your consideration. So, one key consideration is in growing Guam's aquaculture sector is the multi-agency nature of the permitting process, as McQuid stated earlier. Thank you so much for that. Aquaculture development, by its nature, touches several areas of jurisdiction: land use, environmental review, coastal management, and infrastructure, which means that multiple agencies each play an important and legitimate role. The opportunity here is coordination. So when agency review things independently and on different timelines, there is a natural risk that the cumulative process becomes longer and less predictable than any single agency intends. So strengthening communication and alignment across agencies without diminishing any agency's role in a meaningful way will come with efficiency gains in the system itself. Next slide, please. So some other strategic considerations are site readiness. It is very important to consider this because prospective aquaculture locations may benefit from investment in utilities, access roads, drainage, and coastal infrastructure before they are fully development ready. Proactive planning around site preparation can meaningfully reduce uncertainty for prospective operators in the field. And it is worth acknowledging that the strong policy foundation that already exists on Guam establishes the Division of Aquaculture and enacted Public Law 23-05. This was enacted in 1995. So here's some background context to understand why this matters. It helps to look at the numbers. So Guam currently imports approximately 90% of its seafood, representing around $20 million in annual spending. Prior to Typhoon Mawar, local production, while modest, was active and growing. And the storm's impact on the sector underscored just how much local production contributes to community resilience and why rebuilding it is a priority. The global context is also encouraging. The aquaculture market has grown to approximately $312 billion and now accounts for 59% of the world's seafood supply. Demands for responsibly produced local seafood continues to rise, and Guam is well positioned geographically and institutionally to participate in this growth. Guam's commitment to the sector is already on record through Public Law 2305 and the commissioning of the GITA feasibility study. That was a feasibility study done in 2022. And these are meaningful investments of time and resources. So the recommendations that will follow are designed to help realize the returns on those investments. Next slide. So this slide looks at the current framework through an investor's lens because it's understanding how external partners evaluate risk. It helps us identify where targeted improvements would have the greatest impact. So for permitting complexity, when they are long and uncertain, this translates to timeline risks, holding costs rise, and project confidence erodes. Another point to look at is energy costs, which are elevated on island context. This creates margin sensitivity that careful planning can help offset. The absence of local hatchery means operators currently depend on formal investments and depend on imported larvae, and introducing the supply chain to vulnerability, because if you rely on the supply chain too much, then you can't import what you need on time. And the absence of formal investment incentives means Guam is competing with jurisdictions that already put such tools in place. The consecutive reads of this analysis is that these are addressable. Each represents a lever Guam can pull, and pulling them would materially improve the territory's competitiveness for aquaculture investment. Next slide. To make the coordination challenge more tangible, consider an illustrative example. Look at the chart, please. So a developer proposing a land-based coastal shrimp operation under the current framework, applications must go to 5 different agencies and 2 federal agencies separately. Each agency reviews its own timeline and may request additional information, as McQuinn stated. And independently, the issues could compound and make the timeline very slow. And that figure at the bottom, the one that says 120 to 253 plus days, that figure 253 plus days comes from just one agency, which is quite alarming. That agency is a federal agency, actually. Next slide, please. So it is worth being deliberate about how we frame the investment case. While the economic returns are real and meaningful, the primary argument for restoring and expanding Guam's aquaculture capability is one of food security and community resilience. And that argument is compelling on its own terms. So, independent of export revenue or private investment, this model can succeed. So, restoring Guam's aquaculture development and training center to full operational capacity is estimated to require approximately $3 million. That is a figure taken from Jim Wyman's feasibility study. And that investment is projected to generate around $5 million in local food value and support approximately 100 jobs. Even a 10% reduction in seafood imports, retaining more than that 20 million within the local economy would support an estimated 40 jobs. These are outcomes that serve the public interest directly and do not depend on market conditions outside of Guam's control. Next slide. So, this is a case for the Bidet hatchery. Rather than developing new infrastructure, this is grounded in sound stewardship. As the largest and oldest aquaculture center in the Western Pacific, a 5-acre biosecure facility with decades of established SPF, Pacific White Shrimp genetics. That type of shrimp is very important because it is resilient to different types of diseases, so it has a higher rate of producing more product within the market. That's why it's highly coveted even throughout the world. And it represents a significant public asset. Restoration builds on what already exists, which is faster, more cost-effective, and easier to justify as a public investment than a new construction. Typhoon Mawar's impact on the facility was approximately 1.18 million in livestock losses alone. So that is the SPF genetically bred shrimp. They lost about $1.18 million worth of families of that shrimp, which is a big loss for Guam. And so that was a major setback. And importantly, it was not a reflection of any failure in aquaculture practice, but rather an exposure to power and infrastructure vulnerability that subsequent investment has begun to address. The $235,000 electrical restoration completed in 2023 was important as a first step, and completing the full restoration would be a logical continuation of this commitment. Public Law 23-05 articulated a clear vision for coordinated aquaculture development nearly 3 decades ago, back in 1995. And operationalizing that vision is a full opportunity to honor the intent of legislation and deliver on the promise that it made to the community. Next slide, please. The approaches being recommended here are also well-established precedences. So Hawaii's 2015 Act 230 created a single master permit for traditional fish pond restoration, framed explicitly around food security, cultural practice, and community access. Norway's 2025 Aquaculture White Paper introduced a performance-based unified permit system focused on environmental stewardship, and the U.S. National Aquaculture Act of 1980 established an interagency coordination initiative at the federal level in recognition of the same structural challenge we are addressing today. So Guam's Public Law 23-05 was written with the same coordination goals in mind, and the recommendations that follow are an opportunity to bring that life to vision. Next slide. So with that context in mind, I would like to offer 3 recommendations for your consideration. First, we recommend designating 2 or 3 aquaculture development zones with pre-screened land use, utility access, coastal capability, and hazard risk assessment already completed. Doing this work upfront on behalf of the sector would significantly reduce barriers for prospective operators and send a clear signal of readiness. Second, I would like to recommend updating Public Law 23-05 through a modernization bill that confirms a lead agency, establishes a aquaculture permit coordinator role that could be within the agencies or a third party as a job, and set clear review timelines. This authorizes the developments of zones and requires annual reporting to the legislature on permitting and industry progress, because if the industry moves past laws, then that's when all these inefficiencies happen. Guam has already made the foundational investments in law and in institution and even in infrastructure. So these recommendations are an opportunity to bring these investments to full potential in service of more food, secure, and economically resilient community. Thank you so much. And I will now pass the mic onward to Chris Perez. He will talk about workforce development.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this special edition of the Innovate Guam podcast. I'm incredibly proud of these students and the work they accomplished throughout the semester. They demonstrated that solving Guam's biggest challenges requires systems thinking, collaboration, and the courage to develop practical solutions, not just identify problems. If one of today's topics especially interested you, remember that I'll be releasing each student presentation individually on my Substack page, where you can explore each issue area in greater depth, and I can easily share those presentation slides with you. I'd like to thank the University of Guam School of Business and Public Administration, Dr. Ronald McNinch, our community partners, and everyone who supported this forum and these outstanding students. As always, I thank you for listening. Remember to follow me on all social media platforms, including Substack. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to stay up to date on future episodes of the Innovate Guam podcast. And don't forget to check out my Innovate column in the Pacific Daily News every other Friday of the month. Thank you for listening. See you next time. And remember, whether you're at work, at home, or at play, always innovate. Thank you.